Let's get a USB to USB.
Yeah, male to female.
So I can...
Yeah. There's no way of doing that with the AUX cable, is there?
No.
Like what we do into the camera.
There might be. No, because there's no audio output in this. It's just a audio jack.
Oh, yeah.
Not a
audio
connection. Although, yeah, that's just audio. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Right, we'll just give him a second. Sorry about that. There's literally just a pain in the... Brit stuck the stream down. Hang on, we'll just give Aaron... If you have more questions, ask them. But if you ask a question already, we'll keep going through the ones up here. So there was on Pixel Sciences. Just give everyone 2 seconds. I think it was about 50. So we'll just... You know? Derek, we're using the DJI Mic 2. So that has a USB from their Bluetooth. The USB module goes in via USB-C into the laptop. Quality audio is great, obviously, but the connection for some reason isn't stupendous. And when we're connected to the camera, so we use the Alpha 6400, that's through an audio jack. That stays nice and consistent, but for some reason, the port, I don't know. Laptops last year? No. Was it last year I got it?
2 years ago,
I'd say
maybe?
maybe 2 years ago, yeah. It seems to be the actual hardware connection. The Windows, Windows is, I don't know, Windows made some silly mistakes. Right, okay.
We good to go?
Yeah, I'd say go again with Pixel Sciences.
Okay, Pixel Science says,
well,
I'm about...
Just read the question, I'd say there.
I'm about 2 months or so...
Sorry, just answer the question, I'd say.
Do we not need it if we're going to do...
No, it's good.
So, in this case, you're approaching your training correctly. Basically, you're training for the sub 2 hour half marathon, then you're going to train for the sub 20 minute 5K, then you're going to bring everything together with the squat that you basically already have. Assuming that those 180s and 190s aren't incredibly difficult, I don't foresee a massive issue with what you're doing with your squat. If it was me, though, I would prefer to see you squatting more than twice per month. So the reason for this is, essentially, you want to maintain some familiarity with it. At the moment, if you're squatting once every 14 or 15 days, there's very little familiarity there. And basically what you're opening yourself up for is the situation could arise where a session goes poorly because you don't feel great on the day, or maybe you're a little bit fatigued, or something goes wrong during the squat session itself. And then suddenly you start to chase the squat. When we have a small bit more familiarity with the squat, and those sessions are a little bit easier, and the warm-up flows a little bit more freely, it's very, very simple for us to just keep that squat tipping away. You're talking about squatting weights that are somewhere between 100 kilos, 130 and 140. It's not that difficult for you to go into the gym probably once every 7 to 10 days at that point. Increasing that from twice per month to at least 3, if not 4 times per month. I think in most cases, squatting once per week will be good for pretty much everyone, although you are building quite a bit of mileage at the moment. In my opinion, the most difficult part of this challenge will be not necessarily molding all of those 3 things together for you, but it will be getting to the sub 20 minute 5K. So getting that 2 hour half marathon is something that you're just going to do right now. I assume you'll prolong the training block or prolong this initial period of training until you get that sub 2 hour half marathon. Once you get to that point, though, what you're probably going to have to start doing is altering your running style, increasing the intensity of your running sessions. All of these things will start to put a lot more physical stress on the structures you're demanding, right? So ankles, knees, shins, hips, lower back, all of this will start to take a little bit more. And that's where the real difficulty comes in here, because you're still going to have to be doing those slightly longer, slightly slower runs. You're still going to have to be maintaining your squat. And now you're having to push the runs quite aggressively, or more appropriately, you're having to push that running pace more aggressively. Now, that pace isn't insane by any means. It's a 4 minute kilometer, but you do just need to be careful, and you need to be wary that that is probably where you're going to see that little blip in performance. And in that period of training, what I would say is your 2 areas you can take some training mileage from, or take some training intensity from, is cut down on those longer, slower runs a little bit. Maybe even go to some off the feet conditioning. Assault bike, standard stationary bike will be great for this. Just getting mileage in, getting that zone 2 and zone 3 work in will be very, very valuable there without necessarily taxing those structures quite so much. And then when it goes to squatting, keep the volume there with your squats. So keeping that volume there will do really good things for maintaining that muscle mass. Will also do really good things for maintaining that higher intensity output that you're going to need, but it won't tax you in the same way, or it won't tax those joints in the same way where the slightly heavier squat sessions will be. It's a very common thing for people during these periods of training, if they're squatting very infrequently, to basically go for a quasi max every time they go and train. And that is definitely not something you want to do.
Gustavo says, thoughts on the lying tricep extension as an accessory for the strict press, and what are the best accessories for the strict press? So when it comes to the strict press, the best accessories are pretty much anything that would improve the strength and muscles of individual muscles primarily involved in the strict press. So that is quite literally any of the muscles or joints in the upper body. So a lot of times people forget things like the upper back and core, but if you want to go super specific, if you, for example, go very aggressive after your triceps, so you're talking about anything with tricep extension here, you're talking about lying tricep extensions can be perfect. You could do GAIN press, you can do, for example, I really like tricep pushdowns. If the option to do that, I have a cable system in the shed, and I literally just did really heavy and high volume tricep extensions for weeks on end. I didn't do any strict press, and I came back and I pressed 100 kilos, which I hadn't done in ages, because it can be so valuable when you think about how the strict press is done. There's essentially, if it's a dead stop rep from the first rep, if you're really honest with yourself, you're not leaning back, you're not doing any amount of knee bend, the strict press is incredibly mechanically disadvantageous for your body. It's why you can press the least amount from pretty much anywhere else. So everything that produces force involved in this, so delts, your triceps, anything that maintains posture, like your upper back, your core, is incredibly important. So pushing any of these, increasing the size and or strength of these muscles involved in the strict press will go a massive way to improving the quality and the strength of your strict press. If you look at our first strict press program on the app, for example, there's tons of assistance exercises. There's things like pike push-ups, there's weighted push-ups, there's tons of exercises there that are general to the strict press because they make such a big difference. Most people can actually tolerate quite a bit of volume and frequency of strict pressing, but it's not always the best way to go about improving your strict press, especially if you're someone who's not freakishly strong. If you're just the kind of average person, the average trainee, someone who's just not incredibly genetically predisposed to muscle mass or strength, you want to use all of the kind of weapons at your disposal, or all the things that could possibly help your strict press. And that's doing things like trying to get PBs in your tricep pushdowns. That's like trying to get PBs in your weighted pull-ups, getting PBs in your weighted sit-ups, improving your delt strength and your size of your forearms. Anything that's involved directly in the strict press or maintaining stability is a great assistance exercise for the strict press. And if you push these really hard and you're au fait with strict pressing, you're doing it regularly, and you haven't pushed the assistance exercises aggressively before, you'll see a major difference in the quality of your strict press. So the best assistance exercise is whatever you can push that will improve that muscle's primary function in a reasonable fashion. So if it's triceps, extending the arm or the elbow, I should say. So something like tricep extensions. And if you can do that in an environment where you can do it over a good range of motion, and you can do it as heavy as you can get, but you can do it with a consistently good technique that isolates the tricep in addition to doing your strict press, you'll find that that is incredibly beneficial. So for you, lying tricep extensions might be a great option. So there's on the old chat, pixel lines. Is form breakdown during the later sets in RTA weeks 5 to 7 cause for concern?
Form breakdown comes in many different forms. Any sign of form breakdown is going to be a sign of fatigue, or it might just be a sign that you're pushing things a little bit too quickly, right? Now, week 5 to 7, what you're probably getting there is you're already incredibly fatigued from week 4, day 2, assuming you're doing the original RTA 1 squat program. So a lot of the time we see some breakdown on week 5, day 1 and day 2. That's normal. We see it. Is it something we like? No, it's absolutely not. But it does give you a little bit of an impetus to then start paying a bit more attention to your recovery, maybe getting those niggles sorted out, maybe taking on a bit more calories, prioritizing sleep, prioritizing recovery. Now, when it comes to any intense training cycle, like the RTA, like the RTA2, like the Express program, like the bench program, there will come a point where the weight gets significantly heavy, or more importantly, the rate of progression becomes significantly steep, where form breakdown might occur, or you're at risk of form breakdown. In my opinion, that is not carte blanche to say, I am at week 5, week 6, week 7, my form is breaking down. It's okay because it's near the end of the cycle and I'm nearly done and I'll just get the PB at the end. In my opinion, it is still something you should chase as aggressively as you would have chased it in the initial 2 or 3 weeks of training. What I don't want to see, though, and this is a major concern for some people, is basically they'll get to the point where they're a little bit more fatigued. The weight on the barbell is a little bit heavier. The cycle is asking a little bit more from you. And you get form breakdown in the point where the barbell moves a little bit more slowly. The joint angles mightn't be exactly as they would be with 50% of your 1 rep max. And now suddenly they take their foot off the gas and say, whoa, 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 let's stop. Let's reassess. I don't want to go any heavier. A heavy squat is not going to look the exact same as your squat with 20 kilos, your squat with 50 kilos. It simply won't. The barbell will move more slowly. You will probably have to accommodate the weight by doing something slightly different. Does that mean that squat is incredibly poor? No. It just means that you're probably doing things slightly differently at lighter weights. That might be you're getting away with a different position because the barbell is moving more quickly, or it might be you're able to maintain a certain position because the weight is relatively light and it's not actually the ideal position for you to be in. So form breakdown isn't necessarily something that I'm okay with and give you carte blanche because you're in the last 25% of the program. But form breakdown at the point where your barbell is moving a little bit more slowly, or you look to be moving a small bit more differently because the weight is heavier, isn't something you should be concerned with. The last thing I want to say here is that it has oftentimes occurred where somebody will start changing things because the weight gets a little bit heavier. What do I mean by this? Well, an example would be cutting depth in your squat, or we'll see some localized flexion in the upper back, or we'll start to see people really opening up their wrist to get that bar in a slightly different position because the weight is getting heavier and they're kind of cheating it a little bit. We don't like that at all. We still want you to maintain good positions. We still want you to maintain as close to the ideal framework for the squat as possible, but just beware that heavier squats are going to cause you to look slightly more different than they will at 20, 50, or 100 kilos.
I will say, so, if you look at the coach chat on the app, for example, they get dozens of videos every day of athletes. 90%, 95%, say 9 out of 10 people have very definite things that they could improve upon and change in their squat that will improve their 1 rep max at a later stage. Maybe 1 in 10 people, or maybe even less, like 1 in 20, someone will have an excellent squat, a perfect. I can think of 2 this week, say, where there was absolutely nothing I could give them on feedback. And we don't want to give feedback if it's going to make you neurotic, where these people will have beautiful squats and they're like, not that happy, doesn't look great, not sure what to change. And in those scenarios, the piece of advice is your squat is perfect, keep training and forget about it. So that's also, I'm not saying statistically you probably have things to improve upon, and statistically your form probably is breaking down worse than it should be. But there's also a chance that you're a bit too neurotic about it when there's no need. I'm going to say most people, definitely most people, but every so often someone comes along where you're like, there's nothing wrong, keep going. Now, next is any advice on engaging the upper back in the jerk instead of relying a lot on the shoulders? So, Derek Visser, this sounds like your shoulders are too tight when you're doing the jerk. So, if it's feeling it in your shoulders a lot, the problem is your traps, your lats, your thoracic, or your pecs, or your shoulders themselves are too tight, and you can't get the barbell further enough behind your neck or behind your head, which would kind of, I suppose, contract the upper back muscles a little bit better and make it feel like your upper back is doing more work. So I'd say this is almost certainly a mobility issue, if I had to.
It sounds like it.
The TARP said, any legal supplements you feel that has an effect on joint health? A lot of people try to sell stuff out there, so it's hard to tell what's true and what's shady advertising.
The classic example here is taking omega-3s or taking fish oils. And
did you ever find any good?
I used to take them a lot, but I'm not sure if it made any difference. If I'm being perfectly honest, Nothing makes a difference to joint health like appropriate range of motion and supple muscle tissues around that joint. It does not make, lads, you can pump in whatever you want, legal or illegal, into that joint. If it's sore knees and you have quads that are far too tight, nothing you take will improve that knee. Now, you might be able to make up for some of the damage by improving the tendon, or you might be able to make up for some of the discomfort by taking something that gives you a slightly higher pain tolerance or reduces the level of inflammation within the joint. But nothing will fix that like making that quad slightly looser and slightly more supple. And this goes for quads, or sorry, goes for knees, elbows, wrists, shoulders. Almost everything is a chronic tightness issue. And the supplement thing, obviously, a lot of weightlifters will ask us about omega-3s and fish oils for their knees. In my opinion, that's not going to make any difference. Will it do anything bad for you? Probably not. Will taking an added amount of omega-3 every day make a difference? Maybe it'll be good for you. But most of the joint discomfort that we're all experiencing when training is because those muscle tissues are too tight. And rather than going and trying to find a supplement that's going to help you, like glucosamine and chondroitin, or whatever it is, none of that will work if those muscles are chronically tight around the joint.
I'm sure they radio labeled some of the collagen recently and found it did actually settle in the joint. So I might be looking into that, Tarps, but I'm not super up to date on that research. Now, obviously, a lot of new peptides are incredibly useful, but you did say legal, so that's if that said it was more of a, you might squat more if you had them. He's a 19-year-old thrower, so anything to squat heavier. Back squats, so this is O-lined below. Back squats have bulletproofed my back, hips, and knees, but my ankles still suffer. What bulletproofs the ankles the way a back squat does for the rest? Looking forward to doing the horse challenge.
Introductory level plyometrics will bulletproof your ankles like almost nothing else will. When we look at the ankles, usually what we're seeing there is a slight lack of proprioceptive awareness around the joint, whether that's from previous injury or whether that's just slightly lacking in terms of our overall physical literacy. Introductory level plyos are really where you should start with this. So this is very simple jumping and landing drills. You could even bring in some agility type work with some speed ladders, anything essentially where you're taxing that ankle to stabilize you and then allow you to spring off again will really, really help with that. The thing with ankles, the things with anything where that Achilles tendon and those calf units are involved, is we are doing so much work with our calves all the time. If you're taking 5,000-10,000 steps a day, you are doing mini calf raises with that all the time. And it's almost certainly not a strength issue. Now, what we are going to see is we'll see that lack of proprioception where we might roll the ankle. We might also get to the point where even small amounts of running, jumping, bounding, and landing will start to really aggravate the ankle. We'll get things like that stacking feeling in the front of our ankle, might get some tendinous pain in our foot or up into the back of our calves. All of these things can be nicely trained away, or we can make positive adaptations away from them if we start doing those simple jumping, hopping, bounding, and landing drills like you'll see in the first 2 stages of plyometrics.
The TARP says also very briefly how much protein, thanks in advance. So I think the 0.8 pounds per kilogram of body weight. It's so funny that we have to use metric and imperial or whatever for that recommendation. So I know, or was it 0.8 pounds, 0.8 grams?
Yeah.
0.8 grams per pound of body weight is probably more than enough for everyone. I think the gram per pound might be a bit overkill. So I'd wait and see what this comes to in a couple of years, to be honest. There's definitely people who have some very good arguments. Some people who I'd highly respect and who would be far more effective when it comes to recommendations around nutrition. There's people who are very, very good at this, who full-time job is that we don't really, I suppose, do nutrition in this factor. So the answer I'm giving you is you could be looking at things like there might be different health outcomes with higher protein. There might be different training outcomes. The body composition could be slightly altered. But I'm not convinced that the difference between 0.8 to 1 gram is worth the trade-off that you would have to lose if you're controlling for calories when it comes to carbs or fats. So you're going to have to work really, really fucking hard to get say if I'm 100 kilos, so 220 pounds, so 220 grams of protein, and I have a freezer full of dead animals, and it's an absolute trek to do that much. Whereas getting 150, 175, it's pretty easy. Like it's not, no, that's not easy. You definitely have to be super conscious for it. And I would say if you're not tracking things, and the average person, in my opinion, starting to start eating, definitely undereats protein. Most people get like 80 to maybe not even 100 grams of protein per day, like less, if they're really not paying any attention. But for most people, if you're watching this, you're probably getting enough protein. Now, one thing you could try is just do 6 weeks to 2 months of hitting the gram per pound and see what happens. See what happens to your training, see what happens to your energy, see what happens to your body composition, see what happens how you feel, and then taper that back to, say, 0.8, for example, and then see how it is. I think we definitely don't need as much, but certainly sufficient protein is very important, if that makes sense.
So you used to give that carte blanche recommendation all the time of 2 grams per kilo. So if you're 100 kilos, 200 grams, with the added on thing of aim for that and you're not going to hit it. Now, in retrospect, looking back in the last 15 years of telling people that, my biggest issue is a lot of people will then have to take in supplementary protein, whether that's through whey protein, whether that's through protein bars, whether that's through whatever it is. And a lot of those supplementary protein products probably aren't the best in terms of your overall feeling as you prepare for training. Now, it might be a thing where someone's suddenly eating 2 or 3 protein bars every day and it takes up a massive amount of their calories. They can't get those carbs and fats in that Owen's talking about to really fuel themselves well in training. Or it might be they just get so sick of drinking whey protein, their stomach feels terrible, they're not able to perform as well in a kind of sporting context as they should. So it is definitely something where there's a little bit of give and take in it. But I don't think many of us are going to be overeating protein, or that is a concern for many of us.
How would you treat renovating a house and training to get better? Did you renovate your house? Did you keep training, or did you maintain?
I renovated a house and didn't train at all, and it destroyed me, just ruined my back. The problem is how much of that renovation you're doing. In my case, I was doing it every morning and evening before and after work, and it was just too much. At that point, you're not able to train at all. You're also not able to sleep, so getting like 4 or 5 hours sleep most nights. It just doesn't work to do that and try and train at the same time. In many cases, people are doing a renovation where they might just be doing kind of a few evenings a week and the weekends. And in that case, just make maintenance your main goal. You could also take some of the load off if there's particular aspects of the renovation that are really going to fatigue you. Know that those particular times are going to be problem points for you, and maybe make that a slightly lighter month of training or a slightly lighter few weeks of training. If it's something where you're flooring and you're on your knees, maybe give the squats a little bit of a break for a few weeks. Or if you're stripping a load of tiles off a wall, or you're plastering and your shoulders are destroyed, give the upper body a little bit of a break and kind of give it some love in the point of give it some added mobility work, give it some added recovery work. But it all just depends how much you're actually doing.
I think it is fair to say that most people are renovating the houses, and I'm not accusing anyone currently present, but it probably could plan it a bit better time-wise and do it over a longer time frame, but have it more sustainable where you don't chronically injure your back, for example, and do other activities in your life. Just saying, some people, because obviously it's hard to plan when you're renovating because you're not sure exactly how long things go, but I think if you routinize yourself a little bit differently and schedule a little bit differently, just in general, you can manage both of them. It'll definitely take you a bit longer, but you'll have more sanity and probably more of your body left when you finish the renovations.
Yeah, it depends if it's more important for you to have a house that you can live in or to kind of go to the gym and enjoy it.
Well, if you're already in a house and you're not under pressure, and you could take an extra 2 months, but you'd have it back.
But we don't know what this individual's situation is.
That's true. But if that's the case, he probably isn't on a live stream asking questions. So I think most people probably, not accusing anyone in specific, you know, did need to destroy
Just
them.
go as hard as possible
Yeah, I
for those
don't.
few months. Get it done as fast as you can.
Yeah, I don't.
You know, don't ask anyone for help.
Again,
Just do it yourself.
not
You know
sa-
you can do it.
not accusing
Just keep
anyone
pushing harder.
because you didn't need to
They
do
sell
that.
anti-inflammatories in almost every petrol station.
Never alone said any advice on how someone who doesn't compete in powerlifting just wants to be bigger and stronger should train. Do the powerlifting program on the Seek Strength app. And that'll do it perfectly, because we call it powerlifting, but really should we just call it the strength block. Now there is some focus on low bar, but we'll be coming out with other specific strength blocks this year along with lots of other programs. But if you just want to know how to train, do the powerlifting program and just do high bar squats, your regular squat in place of the low bar, and you'll be perfect. Next one's for you, Fitz. Hi lads, it's Andrew, the elective thrower.
Yes.
Hope you're well. Young boy that trains with me has thrown the qualifying distance for the European under-18 shot.
Nice.
I'm due to have a conversation with his dad, main quote, question mark. I feel like there's going to be disagreements with what I feel is necessary for... Where's the rest of the question? I think it's for his computer development, and he's saying, oh yeah, he feels like there's going to be an argument, basically, because there's going to be disagreements.
So these disagreements are very, very common. If you're training high-level athletes who are in their late teens or mid-teens, these are conversations that are as much a part of you being a coach as understanding how to get someone to squat with better form is. The conversations are always coming from the point of both of you want what's best for the athlete, and all the athlete cares about is being the best person they can, or best athlete they can possibly be right now. I think the number one thing to have in your mind coming into this conversation is that you should not be thinking about this European Championships as the important one, whether it's under 16s, under 18s, even into youth championships. I know they're important in terms of becoming a carded athlete. They're important in terms of college and university selection. But the most important thing you need to have in your mind going into that conversation is that everything you're looking to do will make them be the best possible athlete and the best possible person over the course of their entire life. This is where people mostly fall down. This is where most of the disagreements I've seen occur will happen. Is usually the coach will come up and say, I need more training, I need more commitment, I need less other things going on in that athlete's life. I need them to maybe start doing things that mightn't be great for their health, or I think that is the route this is going to go. Maybe they need to push themselves harder or whatever it is. And the problem in many cases, and it's definitely a problem of perspective, is that coaches care about winning right now. And Andrew, in your case, I'd be coming into this saying, look, if he wants to throw as a senior athlete, this is the level of performance he needs to get in this competition. Or this is what training volume will look like at this level of his development. Or this is what the numbers should look like at this stage in their training. And I think once you come in with that kind of open and honest long-term view, it's very difficult for the father or the parent to disagree with that. I also want you to understand that parents are coming from the point of view of no matter what happens, they're just worried about the kid or the athlete in this case. So it's like, imagine, let's say, there's two kids on the playground. One of them punches one in the face. The other guy turns around and the parents just see their kid who's just punched someone in the face getting punched by that other person. That parent's going to run in, hackles flared. They're going to be all wound up because they've just seen their kid get punched in the face without knowing what's happened previously. The parent will always care about their person, their kid, that athlete, more than you could possibly imagine anyone is going to care about anything in their entire life. You have to understand that the hackles will come up. They will immediately kind of flare up, and you just have to have the kind of wherewithal and the slow, steady pace of conversation, introduction of ideas all the time when you're dealing with this. This is incredibly sensitive stuff. You have to be able to have good, open and honest conversations. And you also have to go into that conversation with the explicit knowledge that this might not go in the direction you want it to go. And that's perfectly fine. There'll be another really talented athlete next year.
Yeah, there definitely, what I wanted to add is that there is a point where you will be correct, and assuming you're correct in what you think is safe and effective for that athlete to develop without putting them at jeopardy in terms of their career and athletic performance, but the parent will still have their opinion, and by all accounts they would be wrong. And assuming this isn't that guy, that discus thrower, Latvia, whose dad was like a double Olympic champion, now his son's a world record holder, assuming that's not him, they'll just be wrong. But you just have to forget about it and let the athlete go if that's the scenario. Because usually in those places, you'll see that the parent has more control over that athlete's decisions, or they'll have more of an input than you will on that athlete, because obviously the athlete is beholden to their parents realistically until your early 20s, mid 20s at this stage in most places, and certainly probably in the UK. And so the athlete, while they might agree with you, will still go with their parents. And so when you coach for long enough, you can just let it go. It's just athletes come and go all the time. It's very rarely even personal, and it's very often a subjective opinion on themselves or what they want to do. So, Andrew, as you're getting older, you're coaching more athletes, you'll just kind of see that it's not that big a deal and it's not personal in some ways. Look, it's different if you're on the dawn of an Olympics in 2 weeks beforehand, the father comes in and you've given the last 4 years on his development, and the dad is like, no, I think we're not going to do any of that for the peak week or something. Totally different. You've put a ton of work in there, but there does come a point where you just have to be like, right, you've said your piece, you said it calm, you think this is best, you're going by your best experience, objective coaching opinion, understanding the process. You're not asking them to do anything crazy, you're not pushing stanazolol on them or anything like that. Then you just have to be like, right, I said my piece, nobody's listening, on to the next one. And if they come back, great. If they stay, great. If they go, great.
One last thing I want to add on that is, I've seen this mistake made so many times where the coach preloads the athlete with the idea that they want to pitch to the parent. The athlete has then pitched it to the parent, and the parent feels like they're almost being attacked because they're like, oh, this whole thing is going on now, and I've never agreed to any of this. And I thought we were just having a chat, but you guys have this plan and you want to do this, and that this amount of whatever is going to go on, if there's something being pitched, I feel like the best possible thing for everybody to be in the best possible headspace coming into the conversation is for that to be pitched initially with the parent there.
You also need to really separate yourself from the outcome as well. Like, you can't be so invested that you're upset if it doesn't go the way you want it. You also do have to definitely entertain the idea as well that while shot put is obviously very important to you and that athlete, if that athlete's going to become a neurosurgeon, shot put isn't probably the best quality of life for them as a professional candidate athlete in the UK. I think you don't even get money for medals with Team GB. I think everyone's got like £20,000 or something for Team GB take care of their athletes to a certain degree for sure. But if that athlete's heading towards surgery or whatever career, it's definitely probably in the better interest of that athlete. So also just have that in mind as well, and let them as a unit kind of take care of that. Johnny Booker, if you asking about doing cardio on bicycles, if you go back earlier in the live stream on part 1 of the other YouTube video, you'll see the exact answer to that one. It's just it's a silly question. Next person. Hello. Excuse me. If a person isn't competitive, what body fat range should they be in? Does an individual's performance with any activity if a person is very lean? Thanks. So there's undoubtedly a body fat range where it's going to be unhealthy for you. There's definitely going to be a place where that is not the best for your long-term health, no matter what anyone tells you. Once you're outside of that, which is probably 20 plus, 25 plus %, say, once you start getting under that kind of 18 to probably 12% or 10%, say, let's say 10 to 18%, a lot of that does come down to genetics, how long you've been training, what your diet is like, how well trained you are, what kind of training you do, definitely, again, your genetics. In terms of performance, does an individual's performance improve with any activity if a person is lean? So what I can say, health aside, most power to weight ratio sports are that have a predisposition to make you better at the sport. If you have a better power to weight ratio, will be improved by you being lean, assuming you don't lose muscle mass. So, for example, in weightlifting, a lot of times the lifter's technique is worse. I know you're saying if they're not competitive, but take that example. If you're too big to be immobile, if you're too fat, your athleticism is reduced, your mobility is worse, you're not as fast, you're not going to be as coordinated. So even if you're super well muscled, even if you lost a bit of that muscle, in some scenarios, you'd be better at the snatch, depending on a couple of different variables. If you are doing jiu-jitsu, when you're leaner, you will have probably better conditioning. You'll have less body weight to carry around. You'll probably have better coordination. You'll have better mobility. You'll have access to more submissions and positions that you're in. If you're on a bicycle and you're cycling on the road, not a stationary bike, your power to weight ratio is affected. Your power to drag ratio is affected, where you're carrying excess fat. The fat isn't doing any contraction, and so your ability to do that efficiently and effectively is going to be reduced. So in general, outside of absolute top end numbers and strength or super heavyweight classes, being leaner is probably better for your health within a degree where it's sustainable amount of leanness, and it's probably better for your performance and what you're doing, even if you're not competitive, because most things will benefit from it. The only things that will be definitely negatively affected by being too lean is, again, being in a really heavyweight class against another person. Or maybe you could take that to something like rugby. I know you're saying not competitive, but if you're colliding with people, a certain amount of mass is important. If you're just trying to squat or deadlift or bench the most amount of weight, even if you're not competitive, your heaviest body weight in most scenarios will be your strongest absolute number. So the answer is leaner for most things outside circumstances is better within reason. So if you lose too much muscle mass, obviously if you get too small, that's going to affect your performance. But yeah, what should it be at? There's quite a range because it depends on your genetics and your desire, because realistically, if you're not competitive, 10 or 14% isn't really going to affect things that much. So the non-competitive body fat level you want to be at is mostly personal preference. And then outside of very specific goals, it's kind of, what do you like? Some people can be 15% and look totally different.
Yeah.
There's ones where you're like, you have to be 10% or something,
Yeah. What I would say is you just need to find something where you feel good at as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's definitely a point where some people at 15% body fat will look phenomenal. They'll look really athletic. They'll look good. They'll be happy with how they look.
Yeah.
Other people at 15% body fat, whether that's due to the fact that they hold less muscle mass or they have a slightly poorer frame aesthetically, won't be in the position where they'd be happy to go take their top off and go into the sauna or something like that. And at the same point of that is there are some people who will sit at 10, 11, 12% body fat and feel great, feel really good. And there's some people that once they start approaching that 10% body fat will start to feel like the walls are closing in around them and they'll be very, very fatigued, right? That could be a lifestyle thing. That could be any number of things. But there is a level of inter-individual difference that you should pay attention to. And it is something like we've talked about ideal body weights and ideal body fat percentages multiple times on the channel, and saying that you have to basically go and experience it. But you do have to just spend the time, not necessarily bouncing around, but maybe get a little leaner. Maybe spend a year at 15%. Play around with that and see how you get on. And you will find that kind of ideal weight for you.
Yeah, I think we're struggling to give you a precise answer because
there is no precise answer.
Well, if you had a precise situation you're in, we could give you a better one. But I will say, if you're not super competitive and you're just training because you like training, which is a ton of people, it's worth just once ever trying to be as lean as you possibly can and just seeing what it feels like and see what it does. Because it's a great experience for you. It's great in the fact that you have that in your back pocket where People who are too fat, who've never been really lean, are very, very concerned by it. They're very upset for them. It's a very hard process for them to do. Whereas you'll see people who've been really lean before, if they get a bit too fat, they're like, yeah, it's literally just eat less food and I just do that consistently enough and I'll be leaner. You know, you'll actually find out that the process is very straightforward. It's certainly not easy. It obviously requires a lot of discipline and setting yourself up, but people who are lean or who get lean very easily or who have been lean frequently aren't stressed out by it, because it's just something that they're able to do and they understand it's quite simple. So if it's something you're kind of thinking about, you're not competitive in anything in particular and you like training, and it's like something where you're like, I wonder what would be a good place to be at.
Mm-hmm.
There's no harm in spending like 3 months or maybe or something a little bit longer and seeing how lean should you get, you know, and seeing what it's like to be leaner and seeing the process. It's definitely interesting. And if you're minded if you like training, despite your best efforts, you might like how you look. You know, as much as you might want to admit it to yourself.
Yeah.
You might be like, oh, that's pretty
this
cool.
is better.
Yeah, I like this, you know.
What I will say as well is there are multiple points of merit to going and doing that, in ways of developing different habits, in ways of leaving go of things you might have thought you really couldn't ever, you know, this thing of like, no, I have to have cream and sugar in my coffee.
Yes, yeah.
Or like, I have to, like, man, if I don't eat breakfast by 7, I'm like, there's so many different things that you could just alter your perception of by going and doing it. And then it might be something where, yeah, sure, you're not saying a 10% body fat for the rest of your life, but it might be where for the next 10 years, you can actually sit at a more appropriate body fat percentage far easier because you've done it. You've done the more extreme one.
Yeah, like we're not saying go to 5% as a natural, but, you know, if you get to like 10 or 12, if you're like 15 to 20 now, the visual differences in your body could be huge. And the process to get there is definitely an interesting experience. And if you know there's no particular pressure, it is kind of fun to do it and see the effects. And you can always just gain weight again, you know, if your strength tanks, so you lose a lot of muscle mass, you can get that back. But it's definitely an enjoyable experience to do, kind of in retrospect, or it's enjoyable to have done. And you'll probably find that you'll be able to stay leaner for longer after if you just get a bit too lean than what you want. So if it's something you're thinking about, it's a great point to build off of as well if you're trying to build back up in weight, because your body composition will probably be better.
And you'll have those pictures forever, you know, like you can just use those on any profile you need.
Yeah. Jack Lanzer says, when are we going to Spawa or Spala again? We're probably thinking in June, Jack.
Yes.
So it'll probably be, I think we had about 20 people last time, and it'll likely be 20 again. And obviously people had a great time last time. We had a great time.
Yeah.
Fantastic facility. We thought it was great food, but the Polish athletes apparently didn't think they thought it was the worst of the training centers.
Oh, I'd eat that food all day, every day.
I eat better than that because I like cooking for myself, and I know you like cooking, but I thought the food was great.
I eat more vegetables when I'm there than I ever do.
Yeah, we use loads of fresh vegetables. So we're probably doing the weightlifting camp this year in June. We'll need to investigate prices. I think was it 1,600 last year? So you got 4 nights, 3 meals a day, 2 training sessions a day with us. Was it 4 or 5 days? I think it was 4 days.
I
like,
can't
it's an
remember.
absolute bargain.
Oh, it's an absolute bargain, yeah.
A ton of Americans and Brits went to that one.
Yeah.
It's just kind of the usual one. So, Jack, we'll be glad to have you back. So probably June this year, I think, is the best.
I think
for us.
June.
We have to wait and see, because obviously the national team have to use the training centers.
Yeah.
But we just have to wait and see when their schedule is, because then we can get booked in. I cannot get over just how unbelievably helpful all the staff were.
Oh my God.
Isn't it incredible how nice they were? Like, just
everybody enjoyed doing their job by the looks of it. And it can't be true.
It can't be.
It can't be.
There's no way. It's so well run as well, the facility.
You know, in Shrek, when they like come to that town and it's like everybody's happy and
Yeah.
It's like that.
Yeah. So probably June this year. And we'll probably take about the 20 again, maximum. Price won't be much dearer, I don't think.
I don't think so. I don't think they'll have changed their rates.
Yeah. probably €1,500, €600, which is a bargain if you think about it for the camp. Like accommodation, meals, and most importantly, coaching with Owen and Dara. And oops, sorry.
Oh no, I don't know what my phone was looking at there.
Okay, I think we're. Let me just. Okay, sorry. Let me check the new chat now.
Do you want to pick a couple from the new chat?
Do you have access to the new one? You do.
I have access. I'm on the new one right now.
You're on the new one right now. 71 people. Okay, we better make sure there's some good questions. So we generally try to get about an hour in, but I think we're an hour and 10 in.
Oh my God.
People seem to get good value from these, to be fair. We get some great clips.
Okay.
Where you got? Where are you?
This is super specific, and it won't make a really clickbaity clip, but it's an interesting question.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Right.
Third last one? Or
Third last
down
one?
near the bottom?
How have you gone so?
Fourth last one.
What is it?
Hefty Multivitamin says...
Yes.
Before that...
Hard to find scientific periodization training?
Yeah. Okay. Hard to find scientific periodization training advice for artistic gymnastics these days. Would be sick if you guys consider... Sorry, there's another part of that question where he's talking about periodizing his training.
Would be sick.
Okay. Would you guys recommend a male artistic gymnast training all 6 events to do circuit/CrossFit style endurance workouts on their hard days, or more volume/longer sets in their event to train endurance? So this is the unending debate in the world of sports science. Should I just do more of my sport, get more of that specific practice and specific training adaptation in, or should I do some sort of other slightly more varied training modality? The question, or the answer to that question, is you should do both. So the first thing is, when we're looking at gymnastics events, whether it's artistic gymnastics events, whatever it is, it has a massive toll on your body. Like floor gymnastics is very, very difficult on you. And it is certainly not a sport where I would say you should be pushing that for the entire 12 months of the year. In the points where we're taking a bit more of an off season, we're stepping back from quite so much work on the floor itself, then those CrossFit style, circuit style, endurance style pieces are really, really useful. So firstly, they're taking us away from those specific motor patterns. They're also taking those joints that are already very, very fatigued and already under a massive amount of load, and they're loading them slightly less. So the ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, all that are going to get a little bit of a break during these off-season periods. The other advantage of this, though, is that using some of the other training modalities, we can push variables a hell of a lot harder than we ever would have before. So whether that's something like aerobic conditioning, whether that's local muscular endurance, whether that's explosive or speed strength, anything along those lines, we can push these individual variables up far, far higher than we could if we were just doing the sport-specific piece itself. The problem is we should not be doing that as the majority of our training volume throughout the entire year, because specific training practice is the most important thing in sports. So what it'll probably look like is you'll probably spend 6 to 8 weeks in an off-season period. You're still doing a small bit of work in the gymnastics gym. You're still doing a small bit of that specific practice, but we're going to pick 2 or 3 physical variables we're really going to push during that off-season piece. Maybe it's gain a little bit of muscle mass. Maybe it's improve our conditioning. Maybe it's get a little bit more explosive as you're jumping off the ground. Any of these things can be really improved during that 2-month block. Then I go back, I transition. Maybe I have a little preseason piece, but I transition into my in-season specific training then I prep for competition. Then I take a little deload, I do another off-season block, then I go back, run that same thing again. You're probably going to do that twice per year. In the ideal case, twice per year with about a week or 10 days of full rest in between, going from your competition block, 10 days of full rest into our off-season block is really nice. It'll allow you to do that very, very consistently for a long period of time. And most importantly, it will allow you to make really good physical progress, as well as making very good specific progress in our sport, which will undoubtedly bring the overall ceiling of your sports performance much, much higher.
I want that to listen. So Matthew Thorburn said, I find your strength standards for BBAG too high. Matthew, they are sandbagged strength standards. The ones we say for BJJ are modest. We actually bring those down because most people in BJJ vastly underestimate how strong they can get and how strong they should get if they want to maximize their ability in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Also, a lot of times we're saying those standards, and this is probably 5 years ago, the idea of even strength training for BJJ was a thing where we had arguments with elite level jiu-jitsu people in our comments, not necessarily arguments, they comment to be like, oh, you don't need this. Now, thankfully, the trend in the last couple of years has changed massively, and strength training for BJJ is becoming much more commonplace. Those standards that we usually talk about BJJ are vastly underestimated for what you want. But if we said the real ones, which would be closer to probably what we'd have for judo, people would be just would think we're being crazy. I think as the years go by in BJJ and as it gets more serious, and as people understand training better, understand that it's just another sport and it's not a wacky martial art where you just got to flow with it, man, and you don't need BJJ and your muscles can just be like whippy tendons and you don't need any muscle mass or strength, you'll see that people are going to get stronger. And look, we've helped people win IWF Worlds, we've helped them win Europeans, we've helped them win Abu Dhabi back when that was a big thing. Strength is better, and BJJ is no different from any sport. And due to the untested nature of most of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu,
Hell yeah, brother.
As BJJ gets even more serious and as people train more, I think we're going to see those standards getting up because I think people understand that.
I think what you're going to see is much more of the judo approach coming into it. In my opinion.
Oh, sorry, Matt, you're saying I agree that it should be high, but you think at teaching. Yes. But you'd be like, my problem is if those guys started training, what I always say to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu athletes, or combat athletes in particular, if you give it a year of good training, consistent, nothing crazy, nothing mental, everyone's always like, wow.
To the brave and the faithful, impossible is nothing.
Loads of people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I was thinking? And I know why this happens. It just came to me the other day when I was driving somewhere. I got a bit of an epiphany, right? So of all the athletes we've ever encountered forever, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu athletes in particular have the hardest time letting go of training frequency in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because I think of all the sports, you get the best endorphin rush most consistently from Jiu-Jitsu.
So enjoyable.
Because it's super enjoyable. The training load per session is quite low. And the endorphins you get because you're fucking fighting with someone, I think they're really high, right?
Yeah.
And so when you go do something like strength training, you're like, this is really heavy. This is kind of hard.
It's getting someone to give up crack versus getting someone to give up slightly more sugar in their diet.
Like you go to a rugby player, you're like, all right, no sprints this week. Go do some squats. They're like, I'm going benching and squatting. I can't wait.
Thank God.
Whereas you go to the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu athlete and they're like, okay, you're rolling 16 times a week. Can we do 12 and do 2 strength training sessions? And they'll want to, they'll agree with you.
Yeah.
But they cannot let it go.
No.
I think the post-training, and I don't even know if it's endorphins, there's a lot of arguments against that. The post-training high you get after training.
If we want to get into the endorphin hypothesis,
nobody wants. Well, maybe they do. But the buzz you get after training
it's phenomenal.
Is so high. I think it's so hard for them. And then if you're really used to not training, strength training, and your game is built around jiu-jitsu in a certain fashion, and you're used to how you feel when you're training, it's just...
For me, personally, what I was going to say before you went into your personal epiphany.
Yeah.
Nothing is more of a lie than the stoner jiu-jitsu thing. You know, this man, we're playing chess. Like, I just love, like, there's people who will genuinely be like, oh, I just love to smoke weed and I just relax and it's just really good. If that was true, why does everybody who's won ADCC take steroids?
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They're making you more neurotic, driving you harder, pushing you up, making you way more aggressive. This like flow like water thing.
I think that's going though. I think a little bit.
I think it's still there.
I think on social media it's going a bit. I think people are realizing if you want to be good at jiu-jitsu, you have to be like an athlete.
Yeah.
I think the average person in jiu-jitsu is probably a bit more like that. But the younger generation are different. Like they're coming up and they're... See, the problem as well on top of this, right, is that when you take gear, and this thing we said for ages, if you're stepping on the gas, your base strength, your base power are all way higher. Your neural drive, your ability to just contract harder. In fact, your ability to add new muscle fibers, not even grow the current fibers, just the new ones.
Hyperplasia.
Hyperplasia is increased.
Oh.
So you're doing something natties can't even do in most circumstances. And then you're just You're like, why would I strength train? I'm a horse.
Man,
It's you're on a gram of
man,
gear.
look at me.
You're on a gram
I
of
just
gear.
tore your geel.
Like, they're on so much gear. They're like, why would I strength train? I don't need to.
Yeah.
So in some ways, they're kind of right if you're blasting a load of gear.
Yeah, if you're blasting a load of gear. But the problem is they're telling that to people who aren't doing that.
So they should blast a load of gear?
Maybe that's the problem.
What if you blast a load of gear and strength trains?
Okay, guys.
Speaking of strength training, I need to go home and train.
Pew, 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 pew.
I just want to make sure there's no other questions. 75. I hate going, there's so many people here, but unfortunately, we've been on for like an hour and a half. Or fortunately, I should say. Johnny, you don't need to apologize for your question. They're always interesting questions. The more specific the question, the better in some
You
scenarios.
apologize for that question, and that was one of the most interesting questions in the thread.
No, he's talking about the body fat one.
Sorry.
Right.
Wait. Go,
Well,
go up,
up,
slow.
oh.
What Seeker Strength program do you recommend for someone out of shape and starting back training? Sorry, back
Off-season-
training again.
Off-season athlete. I would say.
Off-season athlete.
Yeah.
It is perfect. Now, I want to add a very important note on this. When you're setting up off-season athlete, you're not going to set it up with your lifetime best ever PR numbers. You're going to set it up with numbers that are reflective of where you are right now. And so in many cases, the best thing to do is for your first 2 weeks of training, feel your way through the sessions. Get set up, start off-season athlete week 1 with your best estimation of the maxes. This might be estimation of 1RM roughly 70% of where you were before or 50% of where you were before. Play around with those numbers. You can easily tweak the numbers as you go through. You could chat with us in the chat. We'll help you make better decisions with those numbers, but that's the best place to start.
Oh, I want to answer a question there. Sorry, Tom, where are you? No, is it something?
Where
Tom?
are you?
No, not Tom Miller. RCS, sorry. Your app payment went from £24.99 to £44.99, right? So you're saying maybe I didn't meet the terms. There's no sneaky things. This is the first price change we've done, but you don't need to be paying £44.99. You need to be paying £34.66. So what you need to do is go to app.seekerstrength.com, log in, and look at the infographic on stream. So basically the Apple Store and the Google Store take massive fees. They take huge taxes. They take up to 30 to 40% in some cases. So we changed the price increase because we increased the support of the app in the last 6 months. We're on the chat every day, and now we added 2 videos to use, and people are fucking dozens of them every day, which is fantastic. I spent 3.5 hours yesterday in a row on Monday with the chat, because we do it Monday to Friday, non-stop. I didn't take a break. I was listening to about Charles Martel. He at the Battle of Tours, he beat the Islamic. Well, it's actually the Saracens. It was one of the
Saracens, the North London Rugby Club.
No, some of the Saracens. Sorry, the Islamic incursion into Europe.
Very interesting.
I think it was the Duke of France. But anyway, yeah, just go there. You need to pay on Stripe on app.seekerstrength.com. It's cheaper. We increased the price a little bit, but that's with more feet. That's to be because we're more engaged. You get better quality from the app. But you don't need to be paying $44.99 because that's just account for the fees from the Apple and Play Store, because they take tons of money and we don't get it. So there's no point you paying it because we're not even getting that money. So even if you're like, okay, I like the service is great and the app is great, and yeah,
there's no point paying it.
We're not even getting that bit of the money. So there's literally no reason for you to give that to Apple or Google. So just go to, you're paying too much for no reason.
Yeah.
So app.seekerstrength.com, log in there, same details, look at the infographic on the screen. That'll explain exactly how you just make sure your thing transfers over. It's super straightforward. It'll take you a minute and there'll be no issues, and you'll be golden, and you'll be paying less and you'll be still getting the same great service. Now, I hate leaving when there's 75 people there, which is lovely number of people, but unfortunately we do have to go. So thank you for everyone. We'll see you again next week. And main channel, YouTube, this one will have on Sunday, talking about the chest up cue for back squat. Recorded a lovely little video yesterday. And some point in the next few weeks, we'll be in the new high performance center for Seeker Strength for
for kids who can't read good.
A fully kitted out gym for ourselves for recording videos. So when we set up like that, we did get someone in. We won't say who yet, just make sure before it's fully kitted out.
Yeah.
So obviously we were going to be paying for a full gym. So we reached out to a lot of different companies. A surprising amount of people said yes.
Yeah.
Which a lot of them knew who we were already, which was great. And one of them agreed because there's a company in Ireland, was one of the ones we agreed, and we know their equipment. And they were like, of course we'll do it.
To be honest, we got the company we really wanted to get.
Yes. Oh, Seb, is that you? We were just finishing up. Seb, I meant to ask you something the other day. I can't remember what it was. That's annoying me now. I meant to.
Was it about the rash you got?
Why would Seb know about that? Anyways, there's a channel doing great work in a great studio. Seb, I can't remember what that was now.
Mac Dara Gallagher asks really quickly how prevalent PEDs are in the IPF. I'd say rampant.
The dude tested positive for a trend there last year. He'd won like 3 world championships. He'd never been.
There's people doing the heaviest squat benches and deadlifts in history, and people think they're not on gear.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Insane.
Anyway.
Right. Thanks for the live stream. We'll talk to y'all later. Seb, bye-bye. Love you.
Seb says, it is. DM me when you remember.
I can't remember what